Matthew wrote this gospel to a Jewish audience primarily. He writes to show that Jesus is the Messiah of Israel and the King of the Jews. Back in chapter 4, verse 23, we read that Jesus went about all of Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all kinds of sickness and all kinds of disease among the people. So Jesus demonstrated that he is the Messiah of Israel through a teaching, preaching ministry and a healing ministry. In chapters 5 to 7, we were given an example of his teaching ministry with the Sermon on the Mount. And in chapters 8 and 9, we are given about 9 examples of his healing ministry. Last time we were together, we looked at the first healing that's mentioned in chapter 8, the cleansing of a leper, in verses 1 to 4. And the cleansing of the leper, as we said last time, was a clear sign to the Jewish people that Jesus is their Messiah. And today, we look at 2 more miracles, the healing of a servant of a Roman centurion and the healing of Peter's mother-in-law. Now, Matthew's gospel is not written in chronological order, so these events did not happen in this order. Matthew is compiling examples of Jesus' power to heal, again, to demonstrate to the reader that he is the Messiah, to demonstrate his deity and his messiahship. And it's noteworthy here that the first 3 healings Matthew lists are that of a leper, the servant of a Roman centurion who was a non-Jew, and a woman. A leper, a Roman Gentile, and a woman. Those 3 were not exactly at the top of Jewish society. So this likely surprised Matthew's readers to see these 3 miracles listed first. But they really show God's grace. They really show God's grace. And we continue in verse 5, which says, "Now when Jesus entered Capernaum," so he goes back to Capernaum after completing the Sermon on the Mount, comes down the mountain, heals the leper as on his way back to Capernaum. Now he enters the city of Capernaum. If you remember, Jesus moved from the city of Nazareth to the city of Capernaum. Capernaum became the headquarters of his ministry. In chapter 9, verse 1, if you just look over at chapter 9, verse 1, Capernaum is called his own city. And Capernaum was a beautiful city on the Sea of Galilee. It was one of 16 port cities, fishing towns on the Sea of Galilee. It had a population of about 1,500 people, which was a large city in the Galilee in ancient times. The main trade route, called the Via Maris, passed right by the city of Capernaum, so many travelers passed through the city of Capernaum. There are always people coming and going in and out of that city from all over. There was a customs office at Capernaum where customs or taxes were collected for the Roman government. Matthew was the tax collector stationed at Capernaum. There was also a Roman garrison at Capernaum. Roman soldiers were stationed in that city. Now, I have a picture for you, an aerial picture of the city of Capernaum today, the archaeological site. This is what it looks like today. You can see the Sea of Galilee there and the mountains off in the distance. And as you can see, very little of the city has been excavated. It's like 2 to 5% of the city of Capernaum has been excavated. The rest of it is under all the dirt there and hasn't been excavated. But it's a very beautiful location on the Sea of Galilee. If you look back at verse 5, it says that as Jesus entered the city of Capernaum, a centurion came to him, pleading with him. A Roman centurion came to Jesus. A Gentile, non-Jew, Roman comes to Jesus, a foreigner, and most of all, he's a Roman soldier. Now, at this point, Israel was under Roman rule. They had been conquered by the Roman Empire. They were occupied and oppressed by the Roman Empire, by this foreign power. And the Roman Empire kept a large military presence in Israel. So they were under military occupation. And for these reasons, the Jewish people hated the Romans. As you can imagine, they hated the Roman army. But here is a Roman centurion that comes to Jesus for help. A centurion was a Roman officer who commanded 100 soldiers, hence the name centurion. Centurions committed to serving in the Roman army for 25 years when they signed up. So they were career military men. And centurions were the backbone of the Roman army. The centurions took care of business for Rome. They were responsible for executing orders, crushing revolts, maintaining peace in all of the conquered territories under Roman rule. If they failed at their job, they were executed. They were put to death. It's noteworthy, by the way, that each of the centurions mentioned in the New Testament are spoken of favorably. Luke's gospel tells us that this centurion, listen, it says that he heard about Jesus. He heard about the healings. He heard about the miracles of Jesus, but was not an eyewitness to his miracles. He had no personal experience with Jesus. Just as people today hear about Jesus, they hear about a friend who committed their life to Jesus Christ. They hear stories. They maybe have a neighbor who is a Christian who invites them to church, but they have no personal experience with Jesus Christ. And maybe that's you. Maybe you've heard some things about Jesus. You've got some friends that are Christians, but you have no personal experience with Jesus Christ, no personal encounter with him. That's the centurion. He's just heard these stories about these miracles. Luke's gospel also tells us that this centurion did not go directly to Jesus, but instead went to the elders of the Jews in Capernaum. He went to the Jewish leaders and asked them to go to Jesus on his behalf and ask Jesus for help for him, which the elders of the Jews did.